First of all, we learn that he must be a friend. The good statesman must be a friend of truth, justice, courage, and moderation. Right. So those are the cardinal virtues. He has to love them. He has to be a lover of knowledge. He has to be philosophical and not conduce and not be seduced by bodily pleasures. Fair enough. And I've mentioned this one already. He can't have any love of money. So he can't be a money grubber, and because that will again distract him and divert him from what is truly good. If you can bribe a politician out of doing what's right, then he's not a very good politician, right? And he's not a very good philosopher king. He must have great-heartedness and liberality rather than illiberality. And these are words in Greek that are worth paying attention to. The great-heartedness is megaloprepeia, and it literally means what is fitting for a great man. And it's contrasted with, when we say illiberality, we think, well, that he's somehow too conservative or something. But no, an eleutheria. Eleutheria is freedom, right? To be eleutheros is to be free. And so great-heartedness is sort of a detachment from, a freedom from the desires and the temptations of the world that enables you, right, to be free in your choices, right? We've talked on this show before about the distinction between freedom from and freedom to, right? So if you're really free to do the good, right, you have to put constraints on yourself in other ways, right? And this is the kind of freedom from your desires, right? So your desires might just tell you to do this or that at any given moment. Many people are sometimes said slaves to their passions, right? And so that's the idea here, right? That megalopropeia is contrasted with quote unquote illiberality, which is unfreedom, right? Unfreedom from the passions. No fear of death, right? They can't fear death anymore because that's also a love of something, right? Love of life. And this is related to Andrea, right? To courage. So just as you can't be able to, it's bad if you can sway a politician with bribes, it's also bad if a politician can be swayed with threats of death. I mean, when people were admiring Zelensky for staying in the country, right, for staying in Ukraine during war, when people are looking at the Supreme Court justices and seeing all these threats of protests at their house and stuff with the leaked Dobbs decision, like that's, this sort of difficult quality of the statesman that they have to be ready to stay the course, even if it threatens their life, right? So that's no fear of death, no love of life. And then there's kind of, it sort of slips this one in. He can't boast. He can't be an alazdon, a braggart. Alazdo is to boast. And that's, I think, related again to the love of truth, right? And then an interesting one, what we might call clemency, gentleness. He needs to be dikaios kai hemeros. Dikaios, obviously just. And hemeros is contrasted with savagery, agria. And deus koinonatos is like, he can't be unsociable. So there's this sort of idea that like he's got to be charming and turned out. And we go from there into these musical metaphors. He's going to be well refined, has a charming nature, sense of schema. Schema is like good proportion, especially in like statues and sculptures. And so he has to have all of these qualities, which it's interesting. You can see there's an ancient debate about the unity of the virtues. Is all virtue one? Or are there many different kinds of virtues that have distinct goods in mind? And you can see how these virtues are distinct, right? It's not necessary that somebody who's brave would also be musical in the deep sense of being with the muses, right? Like having a kind of sort of sensitivity to aesthetic concerns, right? That he would have a love of proportion and harmony and form, right? It's not necessary that person would also be courageous, but you can see how they all kind of follow from, for Plato, they all follow from the love of truth and the love of wisdom, this erotic passion for truth above all, and to the exclusion of all, right? From that, he derives all of these other qualities that the statesman will have. And it's really interesting to see, if you just list them out like this, interesting to see how he does this. Because there's a good case to be made, right? That at some level, these things are unified, even though they can be found disparately within the human spirit.